Hello and welcome to the Institute for the Study of War's webcast series. In today's webcast, ISW President Kim Kagan sits down with Colonel Charles Flynn and Major Matthew Brooke. Colonel Flynn is the commander of the 1st Brigade of the 82nd Airborne, and Major Brooke is the senior intelligence officer for the 1st Brigade of the 82nd Airborne. They recently returned from Iraq, where they were responsible for the South. For more information, please visit ISW's website at www.understandingwar.org.
I'm Kim Kagan, the president of the Institute, and I have with me today Colonel Charlie Flynn and Major Matt Brooke from the 82nd Airborne Division. Thanks so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having us.
I am eager to talk with you about your experiences during the surge and the experiences of your brigade. And I really love if you would begin by explaining what your mission was at the beginning of the surge and what kind of forces you had available.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, as the brigade was getting ready to deploy to Iraq, we initially were being directed that we're going to be up in M&D North. But as the surge hit, the 1st Battalion of mine deployed with 2nd Brigade, which was then the DRB in the 82nd, leaving the brigade with minus an infantry battalion.
DRB stands for?
The Division Ready Brigade, right, sorry. And so as the forces, or as the brigade continued its modular transformation, mind you, we had just come back from Afghanistan, we then were given an idea that we would end up being the Sec 4 Brigade at the tail end of the surge, because we were going to deploy in June anyways. But we were minus a brigade. So anyways, we ended up deploying in June as the Sec 4 Brigade, and really at the same period of time as the surge forces went out, though not formally designated as one of the 5 surge brigades, we really did come in at the same time, and we replaced a National Guard brigade, the 34th Brigade out of the Minnesota National Guard. And our mission, initially upon arrival in Iraq, was to be the Security Forces Brigade, which effectively secured all the logistics convoys going from southern Iraq all the way up into northern Iraq, and then we had another battalion task force out west, which basically did the convoy security between Al-Assad and the Jordanian border and back. So that was our initial mission going over there. We replaced a 5,500 man brigade with a 2,500 man BCT. We did pick up some enablers, and we did pick up a battalion from 2nd Brigade 3rd ID, which was really the 5th of the 5 designated surge brigades. And so when I arrived over there, had a 9 battalion brigade task force. We were spread out in every M&D AO, and we moved effectively on all the MSRs and ASRs, securing all the convoys that were delivering all of the commodities and supplies to keep the tempo and the pace of operations sustained in Iraq.
Where were you headquartered?
The headquarters was in Cobb Adder at Tallil Airfield in the south, just west of the city of Nasiriyah.
What is actually involved in securing a convoy, and why would we need a BCT, a brigade combat team, to do that during the surge operation?
Well, I think that those materials and commodities that were being delivered, particularly at the height of the surge, ammunition, fuel, water, food, parts, just all of the materials to sustain the tempo that General Petraeus and at the time General Odierno wanted the brigades in Iraq to maintain. And then of course his direction to get out into COPs and JSSs only extended the lines of communication and the supply lines because now we had to deliver to the hubs, but then they had to move all those things out to these various locations to keep the force supplied and outfitted and kitted. And of course, you know, at the time, but we're coming, it's the summer. Violence is very high. And of course, in the summer, you know, units and soldiers are going through a heck of a lot more food, fuel, and water, and parts too, because now we had, you know, 5 more brigades in Iraq. So, you know, things were breaking, and so, you know, that's the importance of really being able to move those things and move them when we needed to move them without being interrupted or interdicted by the enemy. So.
Were there enemy groups trying to interrupt and interdict the supply convoys?
Oh yes.
Who were they?
Yeah, I think, you know, in the beginning, it was pretty evident to us that that, you know, special groups, JAM at the time, we really didn't know exactly what we were confronted with, but you know, the EFPs that were an absolute killer were happening along MSR Tampa, really from where south of us, actually between where we were in Nasiriyah and Basra, and then up closer towards Diwaniyah into Hilla, and then of course as we transited in through Baghdad and northern Baghdad, as we were going up to Balad. The threat out west was greatly reduced at the time. There was really very little going on, but you know, the movement from north to south and south to north on MSR Tampa and the various other ASRs that you have to skirt through was difficult, and really had to do with the JAM elements that were out there conducting those.
I was reflecting back when we first initially had to do IPB, that was about 2 hours long when we briefed it, because we had to brief on every element that was enemy element that was within Iraq. And so to answer your question on who might be attacking those, in the south, what we would call pretty much from Kuwait up to Kabadar, you would actually have folks that would want to try to get the supplies. That would be the folks, the tribal, the marsh folks, would actually try to interdict the movement so that we'd have to leave a vehicle, and then they would pilfer from that to be able to resell. But then that's also where, once you pass Kabadar, you started to see around Kabadar and then north up to CSE Scania and into Baghdad, you started to see the EFP threat, because that was the Shia folks that was in that area. But as soon as you got past Al-Hilla, then you had to work with Al-Qaeda on one side of the road and Shia on the other side of the road that are also battling. And Al-Qaeda typically, from our perspective, would take target of opportunity. Not necessarily, you know, wanting to get the goods or anything, but because we were moving on the routes, they would actually try to, you know, either put something along the road or try to interdict us as we go, just to cause us some friction. And that's the same going around and through Baghdad as well. You're on the roads, you're out there, that's where the enemy can go, and one of the things that Colonel Flynn will hit on is the relationship building was a key thing across the board. More importantly, with coalition partners, to our own U.S. to know, hey, 182 is rolling through your battle space. Right. We might need a little help here, because, you know, your back is to the road looking west, your back is to the road looking east, and we're going right up in between you. Mm-hmm. So that was very important, and that was the sharing piece to identify what specific groups were there, who was targeting us at the time, and then be able to share with the battle space owners of those areas to say, hey, this is what we're seeing, can you get us a little artillery here, maybe a little coverage from eye in the sky, etc., to be able to help us out. Right. So it's very complex coming in. It got a little more simple, even though it's still complex, later on, because as we expanded out from the 500 meters from the road and really focused on our operation environment that we could, or the brigade commander could directly affect and influence in the south there.